you all. Good morning, y'all. Wow, look at all these cheerful faces. Everybody give it up for Christy. That was an amazing introduction. There were jokes. There was energy. I'm so impressed. I think you're all much better people than I will ever be because you're literally here before 10 a.m. trying to support each other, and that's amazing. So give it up for yourselves. You made it. So my name's Daniel Jones, and today I get the pleasure of talking to you about a very dirty word, pride. And I think one of the reasons that pride is such a complicated topic is that it can mean so many different things to so many different people. Like, if we talked about it, if each of us gave a definition of pride or what our associations are with pride, we all might have very different rainbows of definitions. And I know that you probably came into this presentation thinking, oh yeah, look at that sweet, wholesome, homosexual face that you saw in your e-blast, and he's gonna talk about pride, and we know exactly what that's gonna be. And sure, that's true. I mean, maybe you thought that today would look a little something like this, and that's very fun. I really love this, actually. I want more of that. Maybe you thought it would look a little something like this. That's kind of scary, actually. I don't know if I want it to look like that. Maybe you thought it would feel a little something like this. Hopefully it does. And, or maybe it would feel something like this. And hopefully it does. But honestly, all of those things would be a very delightful start to your morning. And when Christy and I started zeroing in on the topic of pride for me to give a presentation on, I said, okay, now Christy, isn't it a little stereotypical for me to do the presentation on pride? Like, doesn't that seem like well-trodden territory? Haven't cis white gay men said enough about their pride? And the answer to that is, of course, yes. But today we get a chance to actually reframe and expand our definitions of pride and think about it in some new ways. So, in the room here, I'm curious who hears the word pride and thinks of something negative? Something that maybe we shouldn't have a lot of it should be in moderation. Nobody. Wow. Catholic. I was gonna say, where are my Christians at? Well, like, no one in here was raised evangelical or Catholic. Okay, thank you. Well, okay, I'll be honest, before I uncovered the glittery rainbow unicorn that lives inside of me, I completely had a kind of negative definition of the word pride, right? If nothing else, the wholesome Christian upbringing that I came from had a very well-worn adage that probably a lot of you know. Pride comes before the fall. And these are literally things that would exist in Sunday school classrooms. We have a chasm opening up to swallow the person who's being prideful, or this sweet little frog is just gonna get eaten. And so that's unfortunate. And it kind of turns into a pretty aggressive thing, right? What Christianity taught me, at least, was that pride was one of the worst things that you could have. It was going to destroy you. It was destruction awaiting for you if you had too much pride. And to prove that this is a real thing, in my internet perusal, I found this lovely graphic. Too much pride will destroy you, right? And kind of aggressive. It's a little much. It looks like something that they may have stolen from Youth Pastor Jared's office in about 2007. But there it is, and that's kind of what I was taught growing up about pride. So we should probably take into account that actually there is some wisdom in what these adages are saying. Pride does come before the fall to some degree. There is such a thing as having too much pride and moving through the world with too much pride. So then this raises the question, what kind of pride is good pride? And how do we know when we have enough pride for any given moment? And so I'm just going to say that that's all rhetorical questions. I don't have the answers, so we can just ruminate on that later. But I'll offer some thoughts on that today. I don't really want to sermonize on the dangers of pride because I heard enough of that in my upbringing. But as we reframe pride in a new context today, I just wanted to pause and give a shout out to my good friend and former Creative Mornings alum, Madeline Hicks, who helped me kind of see that there is a new way to think about pride, that the way that we approach our own work and take pride in our work as creatives and artists is something that's really powerful and something that's really meaningful. Maddie has literally been guiding me through every step of the way of this process, so I'm incredibly grateful to her. Also, I think one of the goals for today is to think about the ways that we can spread pride around and really support each other and be proud of each other. So, in a way, my career has kind of become helping artists believe in themselves, right? Like helping artists take pride in the work that they make. It's my foremost joy, it's a great pleasure, and we know that some artists have kind of an innate sense of confidence and pride. Some people move through the world and they're very confident about what they're making, but that's not necessarily like the rule. I'd say that's the exception, not the rule, actually. Most of us are plagued by self-doubt and imposter syndrome and sometimes literal paralysis, right? We can't possibly get the work out into the world. And a lot of art that we make is not made out of a sense of pride, it's made out of a sense of surrendering to the muses. Like, I simply must give this work to the universe, or there's no other way, right? It must happen. And whether or not that work ever sees the light of day or is shared with anyone, it is an entirely different story. A lot of times we save a file on our computer and we never come back to it, or we put something in a drawer and literally say, that will never see the light of day. And sometimes we need to do that, but for the most part, if we have that impetus, that creative impetus, we should probably think about sharing that with the world. We should probably think about taking pride in that work. So my job has really become being a cheerleader for artists, telling them, yes, you should share that art. You should take pride in what you have made, and the world will be grateful for it. So, okay. Let's rewind the tape a little bit. Some background on me. I grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, down the lane, as they say. Hey, Knoxville, good morning. Great. It's a place. No offense. I honestly spent my whole childhood just like dying to be a part of the culture, like dying to be in the arts, and not really having an outlet to do that. I became like a very dorky high schooler, and I landed at this very unique time in the universe where our city paper, like not the school paper, the city's paper, the Knoxville News Sentinel, had a teen section that they were publishing where you could like review movies and CDs and all these things, and I was just like obsessed with this idea of being a critic, right? So like I would like pitch them on reviewing all of these different projects, and they let me. I literally would like have old ladies come up to me at church being like, I read your review on Becoming Jane, and it was kind of amazing and kind of hilarious, and what, if nothing else, it's an amazing archive of like some of my thoughts at the time. I reviewed Kelly Clarkson's album, My December, which I gave a B+. I reviewed the infamous album, Justin Timberlake's Future Sex Love Sounds, which I somehow gave a lower marking than Kelly Clarkson's My December. I don't think that holds up. And of course, I absolutely demanded that I had to review the songstress of our times, Paris Hilton. For her debut album, Paris. I gave it a C, which was low. That was generous, but it was really low for me at the time, right? I think the only album I gave a lower rating was Scarlett Johansson's album, if anyone even remembers that happened. I did, however, in this review clearly state, if Paris was hoping to redeem her reputation with this album, it sure hasn't worked. Moving along, I also had a chance to review some of the cinematic masterpieces of the day, such as The Other Boleyn Girl, starring Natalie Portman and Scarlett Johansson. This one was a B+ for me, but that was really because I was a huge Tudor nerd. Like, probably the gayest thing about me at the time was that I was in love with Tudor England and Elizabeth I. And I was really disappointed because I love Philippa Gregory, and I was like, oh, I wish this was better. I also reviewed the cinematic treasure Sydney White, which is a retelling of Snow White starring Amanda Bynes. No one remembers this. I think one person does. I see your face. I gave it an A+. So I don't know what that says about me, but it says something. And then I also felt like I really needed to review the animated classic Bee Movie, which I thought it was clever to give it a B. Okay. And then I'm probably best known for my review of the first Twilight film. It is, yes, who can forget? A lot of moans on that one. I literally, first of all, gave it a B, which again, I'm doing a lot of middle-of-the-road reviews here, and I called the plot completely irresistible, and later in the review, I claimed that between the books and the film, I feel haunted. So that's a fun thing for you to noodle on later. So I think this was probably the time when I should have acknowledged that I was a homosexual, but I just didn't, at the time, Christianity, whatever. Well, another talk. So reading these now is like a hilarious glimpse into my high school psyche, right? Like what was happening. I was just this young queer kid who was like desperate to be a part of the arts and like find a proper outlet to channel all of my energy, and I just didn't know what to do with it. And considering that I was only like 16 or 17 when I wrote these reviews, I think I have to look back and say that I had a decent amount of pride and confidence in my own opinions, which maybe was not warranted. And so when I graduated high school in 2009, I had a 1,000-mile rule. I was like, get me out of Knoxville. Like, I will leave. And so I moved to college in Boston at Emerson College, and I was certain, I was like vowing, I will never return to the South. I will never return to Tennessee, right? This is a place that's full of hatred, and it's backwards, and nobody supports what I want to do, and I need to be somewhere where I can be a part of a cultural scene, and I can blossom. And in hindsight, of course, all of that was incredibly prideful. It was naive. It was completely two-dimensional. It doesn't make sense. But that's how I felt at the time. And so I moved to Boston, and you can picture me now being worldly and cultured. Here I am. This is a backstage shot when I was performing one of the only 2 times I performed in college in the Stephen Adly Gurgis play, The Last Days of Judas Iscariot. I played a 7-year-old, and I wore a rosary. I'm not Catholic. Here I am in Europe drinking wine, feeling very scandalous for drinking wine at the time, and wearing a really not great sweater. And here, of course, was the time I had to dress up for my job as a chauffeur to Wait for Godot. This was a marketing ploy for an Irish production of Waiting for Godot that was touring to Boston, and I was the pawn in that marketing scheme, unfortunately. And so, life is really long and very bizarre. After having all of those very meaningful cultural experiences, and many, many more beyond that for several years, I also, had a chance to live abroad. I lived in New York for a year, and I was like, oh my God, New York. And life is just really long, and it's really weird, right? Like, life is bizarre. And suddenly, the next thing I know, I'm moving back to Nashville. I'm moving back to Tennessee, the thing I said I would never do. And I have to honestly thank whatever the higher power is that forced me to do this, because it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And when I arrived in Nashville in 2017, there was this amazing buzz in the air, this sense of possibility of what the city would become, how we would find our identity together, and what the artists were going to create and the role that they would play in the city finding its identity. Everyone might remember this lovely skyline, this little baby city skyline. Isn't this hilarious? This is only 6 years ago, guys. And think about this part especially. What? It's crazy. So I had this sense of absolute inevitable fate telling me that I had to move here, and that it was time. You have to follow it back to the South, back to your roots. And I had to kind of put aside my sense of pride and say, okay, I was wrong, right? I have to eat a little bit of humble pie and go back to the South, and thank God I did. So when I moved here, I literally started blowing up the inboxes of every arts administrator that I would find an email address for. And to prove this, here are the emails that I sent. This is to Matt Logan, who was running Studio 10 at the time. This is to Lauren Snelling, who was running Oz Arts at the time. This was to Nate Epler, the playwright running the Ingram New Works Lab at the Nashville Rep. This is to Valley Forrester, that runs Actors Bridge Ensemble. And through this whole process, I got to meet Jessica Malone. I love the enthusiasm for Jessica. That's great. I was very lucky because she was an incredibly talented local theater maker and producer and thinker, and still is. She and I collaborate to this day. And if you ever get a chance to work with Jessica, I just want to put a plug in. She's incredible. She's very generous to work with, incredibly talented. And so Jessica took me under her wing, and together we worked on the 7th year of the Sideshow Fringe Festival, which was a festival that the city had at the time. And you can kind of see some of the performances here. This was Jessica and some independent artists started this because they looked around at the performance scene and they said, independent artists and experimental artists need a platform to share their work. We must make it. And so they did. And they needed this community to showcase the work. And so they needed a community to take pride in what they were doing. So here are some of the samples of kind of the vibe of the Fringe Festival in 2017. The storytelling event with the throwback theme and everyone kind of in hilarious costume. There was a gender bent Robin Hood with a female presenting Robin Hood. Maddie Hicks doing her 60-second cinema, which was this amazing pop-up where she reenacted Jaws and Jurassic Park in 60 seconds and using puppets. And then some puppet work here as well from Cassie and Mallory at the time when they were working on some puppetry. And that collaboration on the Sideshow Fringe Festival led Jessica and I to work on a piece called Haunted that we did in October of 2017. I'm really grateful for this piece. It introduced me to a lot of my absolute friends and longtime collaborators that I've worked with since. Maddie Hicks, Jennifer Whitcomb-Oliva, Kara McLeland. It was kind of an amazing piece, honestly. It was immersive, site-specific. We had dancers and actors and visual artists, and we took over the silo room, this creepy wine cellar room at Track 1 Nashville, and we made a piece about this forgotten part of Nashville history, the 1918 train wreck at Dutchman's Curve. It wasn't perfect, I'm not here to say that, but it was inventive, it was interesting, and I'm just really grateful that we had a chance to do that before Wedgwood Houston got completely derailed by corporate interests, but I won't go off on that tangent right now. So in 2018, Jessica and I were still working together, and we kind of came to a crossroads because we realized that the festival that she had been running was not going to be able to move forward at that time. And we had a decision to make. We had to look around and say, okay, what are the needs of our community? What do we want to do? What do we want to offer people? And we can either pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off and make something better, or we can just let this go, and that can be the time that it existed, and something new will come up. But we decided to do the former. We decided to dust ourselves off and make something bigger and better, and that became Kindling Arts Festival. Yeah, thanks, guys. We were looking at our creative community, and we saw that there was a need and that we had a lot to be proud of, right? Folks were growing in their artistic practice. They were experimenting in new and inventive ways, and they were hungry to share their work still. And so part of supporting the creative ecosystem was keeping this festival alive. So with basically no resources, we started Kindling Arts Festival in the summer of 2018. Each venue was this delicate dance that we did with each of the venue owners to figure out how we could keep costs really low because we had no money, and we didn't have an organization that was backing us. It was just me and Jessica out there hoping for the best. There was no paid staff at all. There were technicians that were paid an honorarium. There were artists that were paid a cut of the door of the box office that they sold tickets for. And it was lean, and it was simple, and it was under-resourced, and it was wonderful, and it was bursting with potential because people were so hungry for that platform to share their work. So I just wanted to share some of the journey that Kindling has been on through some of the photos and some of the shows that we've got a chance to support. This is a piece called, I'll move to this side, so that way I'm not blocking these people again. This is a piece called The Birth of Mir. It was made by local dance company Numinous Flux. It was made in the silo room at Track 1, this kind of dark, creepy room that doesn't have a dance floor. It's about a mermaid that gets washed ashore and has to deal with her personal identity and reconciling that. It was beautiful. It was lovely. We supported a piece called We Play Here Too. This was a devised theatrical work created by Sejal Mehta, Diego Gomez, and Natalie Risk. It was about the ways that playgrounds and games can be inclusive or exclusionary based on identities. And it was actually drew inspiration from a portrait series by Omari Booker. This was something that she had done for one night only at the Radio Cafe on Gallatin Pike and hoped for the best. And it was hilarious. And we were we have to give this a home. So she was able to get a couple more performances and add some elements to it. There's literally a talking toilet puppet. So that's exciting. A very charming piece. This is Laura Peak, who did her first hour-long comedy special at Kindling Arts Festival 2018. It was called Stupid Titties. Maybe it's too early to say that, but there it is. And Laura Peak has gone on to she's opening for Eliza Scherzinger now on the road. It's amazing. I'm so proud of her. Yep. Hello. In 2019, this is the next summer, we kind of upped the ante a little bit. We added a little bit more production value. Jennifer Whitcomb-Oliva made an incredible piece called The Darkness and Other Black Things. This is a solo show about a black vampire that feasts on white privilege. It was dark, it was creepy, there was poetry and movement. It was scary and delightful and kind of hilarious in parts and very uncomfortable, the whole thing. And this piece actually was restaged a couple years later when Verge Theater Company decided to remount it at the Barbershop Theater for a full 2-week run, and it was awesome. It was her first time doing solo work, which was really fun. Becca Hoback started her solo practice in 2019 with a piece called Rendering that we premiered in a dance showcase called Counterpoint. And we had the silo, or the garage at track 1, which is a completely concrete floor. And we threw down some Marley, and we were like, what can we make with these dance artists? We had never done dance before. Becca has gone on to do a whole bunch of stuff, and you'll see her later. This is one of my favorite pieces, All the Dead Things. This was a play set in a furniture store, and we convinced Royal Circus, which was the name of the furniture store in Wedgwood, Houston at the time, to let us use the furniture store for free and do this crazy play. And Nate Epler, who's an incredible local playwright, wrote some pieces and got some other playwrights to write some pieces about a fictional Nashville family that was wealthy and kind of inspired by the Vanderbilts. And so we were in this amazing store, and it just all happened with the lights on and people sitting on the furniture that existed in the store. Very fun. Okay, so wasn't that momentum lovely? Oh, yeah. I should mention that all of those shows were not going to happen without Kindling Arts Festival for the most part, right? Like, there needed to be a platform for people to present their work. We instigated a lot of those projects, and we had to make the space where folks could share their work. We had to take pride in what the artist community was doing. So when COVID hit in 2020, we actually were able to pivot pretty easily. I mean, we didn't have a lot of overhead. We didn't have to ask permission to do things. We kind of just were able to make quick moves and figure out how to keep supporting artists. So among the things that we did, we hired choreographers to make dances for their bathrooms. This is a picture of David Flores soaking wet in his bathtub, but he made a beautiful dance piece in his bathroom and filmed it on a cell phone, and we put them all together. There were multiple choreographers that worked on that project. We debuted it on YouTube. You can watch it if you're curious. This was an aerial performance that we filmed in a field with suspended gravity. We filmed it at a couple different locations, but it was called In the Eye. It was a beautiful performance film that Griffin Dunn helped us make. We worked with Found Movement Group to create Lost Nashville, a scavenger hunt dance theater piece about local history, and you had to follow clues to get to the different locations around the city because we couldn't be in a theater to do things, so we went to the streets, quite literally. We partnered with the incredible Defy Film Festival, shout out to Defy, on a project called Heroic Couplets. This was a piece where we took a poet and a filmmaker and they adapted a poem into a film. It was a very simple concept, but we were able to get a grant to support this, and the first year we had 12 short films made, including Sienna Rouses. Thank you, Sienna. Well, it was an interesting process with Sienna because the filmmaker and Sienna kind of agreed to go in a new direction, which was beautiful. And this is a shot from To Have a Name, based on a poem by Elora Young, and the film was made by Angel Foster. That collection's available on YouTube. We actually did a second installment of that collection the next year under a gender bend theme. And then we worked with Jennifer Whitcomb-Oliva again to make a piece called Seven that explored the 7 deadly sins through the lens of blackness and fatness. And she wanted to make this performance film, and it had 7 vignettes, each about the different sins. It was pretty amazing, and you'll see that there are people here, so we'll get to that in a second. So in a lot of ways, because we were lean and we were nimble, we were able to make this programming possible. Like, we didn't have time to sit around and overthink it and be like, what are the concerns here, there, or the other? We just had to put on our masks and go to work and see what we could do, or figure out how people could work in isolation to keep making their art. In 2021, we were actually one of the first arts organizations to have in-person programming because of the timing of our festival in August. And we went back to work, masks and all, and we threw a festival that had 14 performance projects in it. It was a wild time. Ennie Brocious was essential in making that festival possible. Thank you, Ennie. We, at the time, of course, had also been priced out of Wedgwood, Houston, so we were dealing with an entirely new set of venues. We moved to the west side of Nashville and started using Oz Arts and Nashville School for the Aerial Arts and the Barbershop Theater. This is a shot of the premiere of 7 happening at Kindling Arts Festival, and this was at Oz Arts Nashville. Beautiful. And can you have that? Yeah, great. This is Sarah Saturday, Gardening Not Architecture, performing in a dome that we put up behind the Barbershop Theater. Sarah adapted her show Absence of Me into a dome show, and the projections were up on the ceiling instead of on her body. Good job, Sarah. It was really fun. And look at that beautiful picture. Suspended Gravity, which is a circus company we had worked with, had to work at Nashville School for the Aerial Arts for the first time, but it opened up a lot of possibilities. They did this piece called Chimera Under the Big Top. Shibazu Jima made a piece in Centennial Park called Soul Sky Moving Spirit. It was a processional piece where the audience got to wander around to different parts of the park and experience these vignettes and different cultural expressions that were all about the sacredness of our body in relationship to the sacredness of nature. It was beautiful. So even in these times, people create all sorts of wonderful art. In 2022, we came back up. Emma Supika made a piece called Scar Tissue. It was a hilarious solo show, very heartwarming. She plays the ukulele, tells personal stories. It was awesome. And that has led us to a wonderful collaboration with Emma, which I am very grateful for. Jessica Malone, our fearless leader, and her partner Daniel Carter made a piece called Bar Fight. It's a queer underground karaoke fight club. There are these insane fight choreography sequences, and there's a script and like a play that's happening, but also people are singing Celine Dion numbers, and it was just like amazing, and honestly probably one of the most excited crowds I've ever been in for a live theatrical performance. It felt more like being in a rock show, which we're very about. And then I just, included this little picture because I love this picture. We threw a 5th birthday party, and we had a lovely assemblage of people dancing at the end of that party. You can see Christy, you can see Devin. So thanks for being there, guys. And just a little over a month ago, we actually wrapped up our 6th annual festival. It was amazing, and it broke all of our records again, and the thing keeps growing. To date, we've supported over 50 unique artistic projects. These are performances that have been launched into the world, some of them with Future Life. We've paid artists more than $100,000 to create work over the past 6 years with no staff. We just did it. And so the message is clear that Nashville is actually really ready to support this kind of work, to have more experimental art, and we just have to keep making it. We keep having to take pride into it. So I want to bring us back to the theme of pride. I know that was a little bit of a diversion. Thank you for going off on the road with me. I wanted to share a little test case with you about a piece that I was really lucky to collaborate on last year called The Naughty Tree. So we asked earlier, what is good pride? How do we know when we have good pride, and how much is enough pride, right? These are questions that we have to wrestle with as we're approaching this subject. And I can't be 100% sure, but what I've come up with is that a good sense of pride is nothing more than the belief that you can and you should do something. So when we're making art, maybe these are good guardrails that we should use when we think about, is this something that I should do? There are a lot of things that don't overlap with both of these topics, right? There's a Venn diagram of sorts, I should have probably drawn it, of can and should, but there are a lot of things that I should do, but I can't. I probably should run for 10 miles or really do anything that's athletic or physically active, but I should run for these 10 miles, and I alas, cannot. I cannot run. I cannot sports ball. So I should do that, but I can't do that. There are also plenty of things that I can do, but I maybe shouldn't do. I can stay up past 1 a.m. watching old seasons of Survivor on a Tuesday. To be clear, I do that. But I probably shouldn't. I can do that, but I shouldn't do that. I'll rewind the tape again a little bit, and right now we'll go back to the time when we were preparing for the Kindling Arts Festival in 2021. I was on a call with Ennie and Jen Deffenbaugh, and we were talking about outdoor spaces. We wanted a COVID-proof festival, and we were thinking about where could we put things that, regardless of what's going on with COVID, we could all be outside and art could happen. And out of my mouth tumbled this idea, the Garden of Eden Cabaret. And as soon as we said it, we were like, that's interesting. We started kind of brainstorming on it a little bit, but we didn't really know what it was. And it was an idea that was good enough to try to make it work. And none of us 100% knew where it was going, but we were asking questions like, what would it be like if Eve was tempted by a serpent, but the serpent was a burlesque dancer? That sounds fun. Frankly, what would it be like if we threw out all of what we know about the biblical creation story and just made it queer as hell? From start to finish, what if it was just queerer than shit? So I reached out to local playwright River Timms to discuss this idea. It was just in that phase. It was like, there's a Garden of Eden cabaret. I don't know much more about it. But we immediately started flowing with ideas and looking at queer theories of the Bible and stuff. It was kind of interesting. But we also realized that we weren't going to be able to make something in time for the 2021 festival. And it was just a couple months away. We had to keep moving. So this is where I hit my own self-doubt. I could see that I had a vision for this show, that I had specific collaborators I wanted to work with, and that this was probably something I should lead. But I had to ask myself, was I really about to direct a whole-ass show, right? I had not done a theater production since college. For context, in college, I decided to adapt and direct and produce an adaptation of Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale. And that was an interesting idea, in theory, but to put it bluntly, it was a little bit of a disaster. Frankly, the material was too brilliant for me. I didn't really know what I was doing, and here I am, a senior in college, trying to wrestle with, ages of patriarchy. And here we are. This is me and my stage manager, Fatima Mateen, and this frankly kind of sums up how we feel about the show by the end of it. But it happened, and that's fine. So the Venn diagram on this project of can and should really didn't check out very well. It's kind of a classic example where I had the ability to do something, but I probably shouldn't have done it. And hindsight's 20/20, and that's okay. But fast forward to 2021, and it's been almost a decade since I've had that, frankly, scary and traumatizing experience of directing The Handmaid's Tale, and suddenly I'm just gripped by fear by this idea, if I dive into this Garden of Eden cabaret project, will I make a complete mess of it? What will I do to make actors trust me? These were questions I was floating around, and on top of all of those artistic questions, just the biblical creation story felt so deeply personal to me. It felt, on the one hand, necessary to dive into, and on the other hand, terrifying to try to break apart. My family was and is still very devout in Christian faith, and I had never made a piece of art that was directly tied to my own queerness. And for a former Christian, that's really tricky territory to think about. You're putting a lot on the line. So how could I make something that in my adult life felt so distant, this biblical story that feels so far away on the one hand and yet so close, but it also felt incredibly exclusionary to me and a lot of the people that I love? How do we take something that's so exclusionary and make it inclusive? They don't call it pride for nothing. So I had to take pride in myself and decide that I was going to pursue this kind of crazy idea. And then I had to take pride in other artists who were desperately needed to make collaborators on this project and make it float. And then I had to take pride in the city that we live in to believe that people were going to come out and support this kind of work. And I was really lucky that when we dove in, I got to collaborate with some of the best people ever. First and foremost, playwright River Timms, who is incredible, works with Woven Theater Company. River took my idea kind of loose of what if we did this cabaret? And they wrote a script that was absolutely gorgeous and heart-wrenching and beautiful and meaningful, and they had nuance. It was just beautiful. So they elevated the project to a new level. And then in April 2022, we actually got to premiere this work, hell or high water, at the Blue Room for 2 nights. And I'll show you some pictures of what it looked like for those of you who weren't able to be there. Maybe I will. Oh, yeah, okay. So this is James Rudolph II. James Rudolph is playing the principal role in this, Mother Nature. And in our world, of course, Mother Nature is in drag. And that just feels right. So incredible improviser, really delivered River's script with such integrity, incredible. We also worked with Fable Cry, which is a theatrical rock band that I had worked with a couple times. They literally came on board and they let us use existing songs from their library. It's kind of like a jukebox musical, but that sounds really cheesy. They adapted those songs for this specific show. They changed some lyrics, they wrote like bridges, they cut parts out, and we figured out how a script and the music lived together, and they underscored the whole thing. It was amazing. These are our Adams and Eves, so we didn't want to have just one representation of Adam or Eve, so we had two of each. We have Dee Ben and McKay House playing our Eves, and Lennon Fernandez and Kane Dayton playing our Adams. Lennon also did all of the choreography in the piece, which is like kind of really involved and beautiful, and yeah, they were incredible. So we're going to watch a little video so that I can stop talking for a second, which I know you're all excited about. This is the part in the story where God decides to create Eve from the rib of Adam, right? And so we were thinking about how we do that. So you'll see a creator character and Mother Nature working in tandem, and you'll see our Adams and Eves working in tandem. It starts off a little slow and quiet, so just like go with it, and it gets really fun by the end. Hopefully it plays. Please play.
Sleep, oh sleep, sleep within. Sleep, oh sleep, I'll tuck you in. Sleep, oh sleep, don't make a sound. Sleep, oh sleep, asleep in the ground. Sleep, oh sleep, sleep within. Sleep, oh sleep, I'll tuck you in. Sleep, oh sleep, don't make a sound. Sleep, oh sleep, asleep in the ground. Sleep, oh sleep, sleep within. Sleep, oh sleep, I'll tuck you in. Sleep, oh sleep, don't make a sound. Sleep, oh sleep, asleep in the ground. Asleep in the ground.
During Adam's slumber, Creator took a rib from Adam, the essence of the first human. And from that, they crafted another, Eve, a companion, an equal, a part, the second human. And Creator looked at their work and said, damn, that's really good. But Creator implanted humans with something special, the power to participate in creation. Creator said, be fruitful and multiply, or be nasty and don't. Sleep, oh sleep, sleep within. Sleep, oh sleep, I'll tuck you in. Sleep, oh sleep, don't make a sound. Sleep, oh sleep, asleep in
righty, yes. So thank you all. Yeah, so those performers were doing all of that on like 8 feet wide of stage. It was kind of amazing, but we wanted a drag runway, and so we had one. So that kind of gives you a taste for it. This is very much the feeling of the show. This is Tessa Bryant in the foreground, one of our poets that read at one point. Very celebratory, full of life. I'm going to whisk through this. We got a chance to restage this again at Oz Arts in the festival in 2022, and we really just had to buy a lot more flowers. That's what I have to say about that. Here's the scene where Creator and the actual embodiment of the Naughty Tree are talking to each other. Our Naughty Tree is a drag queen who gets one line in a lip sync. It was pretty amazing. That's Justine Vandeblair, who did an amazing job. Here's the cast having a great time. So proud of them. And our ending point for this was actually that, of course, the Adams and Eves, the creations, have to leave the garden. They have to separate themselves from their parents in order to build something new and create something together. So that was kind of where we landed. I was very grateful to Erica Ciccaroni from the Nashville scene, who was incredibly supportive of this work and wrote about it like 3 times. This one I particularly love. The Naughty Tree is a celebration of queerness, nonconformity, and inclusion. It makes a place for all of us who have felt cast out to be brought into the fold of a loving, kinky, inclusive spirit. It's emblematic of Kindling's programming overall, freewheeling, uncensored, and full of heart, pushing the boundaries of what we imagine performance art can be. So, what does this all mean? Where does it add up? And how do we boldly take our creative practice to a place that is full of pride? And there are 3 places I recommend we look: inside of ourselves, the wonderful people around you, and in this city that we get to call home. So we'll start by saying, take pride in yourself, okay? And here are some just little tidbits of what we can think about. Stop self-rejecting. We have to take pride in our own work and show up for it. We have to believe in it and find a way to share it with the world. And it doesn't mean that it's a perfect 100% of the time. It means that we aren't self-sabotaging and aren't trying to end something before it's begun. We're taking out that element of doubt. Sign up for accountability. If you need a cheerleader, find someone, a friend, a colleague, an arts administrator of some kind, to keep you accountable, to talk to you. Hey, do you have the draft of the play done? Hey, is that painting coming along? It can be transformative for the work. Deadlines are your friend. Set a date, submit an application. Like, a lot of the work that's made in Kindling Arts Festival happens because someone has an idea, they put it in an application, and we say, hey, we want you to do that. And they're like, oh shit, now I have to do it. So, that's a great way to get work done. You can submit a project. And choose bravery over criticism. It's so much easier to show up at everyone's shows or read about them in the Nashville scene or whatever and be like, ugh. How about you show up? How about you make something yourself? How about we be brave and we actually take pride in what we're doing? So there's that piece of the puzzle. Take pride in each other. Art is generally collaborative, especially the performance kind that I work in. Cheer each other on, show up often, cheer loudly, support what other people are doing. Good art is going to grow more good art. Let's just be supportive of each other. Think collaboratively. What if we all came together and made something? This is a great chance to build relationships. If you go to a show and you love what someone did, email them. Ask them to coffee. I promise they're going to be so flattered that you thought enough of their work to say, I actually want to sit down and talk to you about it. It's one of the most meaningful things. And you never know if you're going to vibe with someone and make a lot of cool stuff. A lot of the Kindling projects literally happened because people asked for help. They said, I want to make something and I can't do it on my own. Can you help me do this? And people worked together for the very first time and they made something amazing. And then also return the favor. This is a whole circle of life that we're dealing with here. When you've had success, take someone else to coffee. When someone asks you, a young person, a student, another artist, a peer, invest in them, return the favor. A high tide rises all boats. And then take pride in our city. I don't know how many of you would say the city has changed your life, but it's changed mine. And the people who are here are ready to work. So if you are willing to do so, again, show up often. You can go see things. This is something that is available to you. You can go to art gallery openings and comedy shows and theatrical performances. Support across mediums. If you're someone who works in the visual arts, go see people that are working in dance. It will absolutely do this, whatever this is. It'll be inspiring to you, I promise. If admission is a barrier, which I know for a lot of us, we're on tight finances, volunteer. Defy Film Festival needs your volunteers. Kindling Arts Festival needs your volunteers. Like, go do that. You know, all the theater companies in town pretty much have a program where you can hand out like playbills at the door and watch the show for free. So that's a great way to support and also see art. And then advocate for the arts. Make it political. The arts are a political issue, and today's the first day of early voting, so go vote. And when we're at the polls, think about the arts as something that actually matters to our community, right? What do these candidates have to say about the arts? How are they going to support our diverse arts community? And also, I think, you know, advocate and share. You can share on your Instagram stories, but you can also think about ways to, like, I don't know, start a community of people that all want to do the same things. Organize play dates. Sean Witzel, a lovely theater maker in town, literally gets people together to go see other people's plays and talk about it afterwards. It's an amazing community gathering. You could do that in any industry. Nashville Theater Link, Cammie Harris just started an email newsletter for people who want to know what's going on in the theater scene. Amanda Cantrell Roach has been doing that for the dance community for years. You know, these are things that people just volunteer their time and do. So, something to think about. It all only happens if you show up. So, all right, I guess today ended up being pretty gay after all, right? And so I couldn't help myself, but we had to do it. Hopefully you had fun with it. And I know that Creative Mornings often has a practice where you like write in books or like, you know, kind of do some journaling on your thoughts of the day. And I think that's great. Absolutely do that. But I also want to encourage you today that if you're leaving here as you walk to your car, or maybe not while you're driving, but when you're at lunch or something, text somebody or send them an Instagram message or stop by the cute little like mail things to people station, the social club station, and tell somebody that you're proud of them, that you're proud of something that they've done, whether that's art or otherwise. Make somebody's day today. I think that's like the best thing we could do. And that's pretty much it. It's not June, but happy Pride, y'all. Take pride in each other. We love it. We made it. Probably not questions, right? Okay.